Today, we're going to look at something pretty incredible, a tool called mpower-u that's trying to do what sounds almost like science fiction, decoding the data of human character to find hidden potential. Let's get into it.
So let's just start with this question, because it really gets to the core of the problem. How do you measure the potential of someone the traditional system just can't see? Imagine the next brilliant entrepreneur. She's got the drive, the ideas, everything, but she doesn't tick the usual boxes. To the system, it's like she's completely invisible. And that idea of being invisible brings us right to our first section. We're talking about the invisible entrepreneur and the massive problem of what's called the missing footprint. For millions of people, this is a huge barrier.
So what is this footprint anyway? Well, a financial footprint is basically the data trail we all leave behind. Credit scores, bank statements, loan payments. It's how banks and investors have always decided if you're a good bet. But what about the millions of people, especially in emerging economies, who just don't have one? It doesn't mean they lack potential, not at all. It just means the old system has no way of seeing it. Okay, so if a financial footprint isn't the whole story, what is? This is where it gets really interesting. It all comes down to what's called the behavioral competence gap. The big idea here is that the real clues to success aren't in your bank history, they're in how you think and act. Just look at this comparison. On one side, you have a fixed mindset, someone who avoids challenges, plays it safe. And on the other, a growth mindset, someone who sees a challenge and thinks opportunity, someone who's resilient and actually learns from failure. That right there, that's a much better predictor of success than any bank statement.
Right, so how in the world do you measure something like a growth mindset? It feels intangible. Well, you need a totally new kind of measuring stick. And that brings us to what mpower-u calls the behavioral blueprint. At a high level, the concept is actually pretty simple. An individual gives their behavioral data, usually through an app. That data gets fed into the mpower-u engine, which crunches the numbers using machine learning. And what comes out the other side is a really clear prediction of key entrepreneurial traits, things like drive, innovation, and grit. It's all about looking forward at potential, not just backward at history. So what specifically is this engine looking for? It boils it down to three absolutely critical things. First is creditworthiness, but this isn't about how much money you have. It's about your willingness to repay. It's the character component. Second, entrepreneurial ability. Do you have the fundamental skills to actually build and run a business? And third, trainability. How open are you to new ideas? Can you learn and adapt to reduce risks?
All right, so now let's pull back the curtain a little bit and see how this thing actually works under the hood. It's this really cool mix of well-established science and some seriously cutting-edge tech.
The whole system is built on this foundation with a few different layers. It starts with behavioral economics, which helps understand the why behind people's choices. Then it layers on principles from psychology to pinpoint 12 core traits that really shape how we act. And finally, it uses the power of AI and predictive analytics to take all that rich information and actually forecast future performance.
And for the actual user, the process is incredibly simple and designed for the real world. It's just 4 steps. You register, you take a survey on a mobile device, which, by the way, can even be done offline. Then the AI engine does its magic, and boom, clear, useful insights pop up right on the client's dashboard. It's simple, it's accessible, and it's powerful. And all of that complex analysis, all that data crunching, gets boiled down to this really easy-to-understand classification system. It sorts people into 3 groups: champions, who have the highest potential; masters, who are a close fit and have room to grow; and rookies, who might need a bit more support. This makes the results immediately useful for making decisions about loans, training, you name it. And it's not just powerful, it's also incredibly accessible. I mean, we're talking support for 14 different languages, so potential isn't getting lost in translation. But here's the real kicker. Its predictive accuracy is over 90%. Just think about that for a second. That's a level of certainty that completely changes how you make decisions. So the theory is smart. The tech is cool. But that brings us to the most important question of all. Does this stuff actually work in the real world? Let's look at the proof. Let's dig into a really powerful case study with the Crystal Foundation. They had a huge challenge. They needed to understand and boost the skills of 5,000 rural women entrepreneurs who are known as Sakis, which beautifully translates to friends or companions. And what they found was just crystal clear. The system identified 24% as high-potential champions. I mean, all of a sudden, Crystal could see with perfect clarity who to invest in for leadership, who needed some targeted support, and where the biggest challenges were across their entire network. But, insights are one thing. The real magic is what you do with them. The platform pinpointed the top 2 behavioral weak spots: managing cash flow and negotiation. With that knowledge, they started sending out targeted nudges through a daily app. Think about it: a simple daily reminder to track your expenses or a quick tip on how to negotiate better. The impact was so profound that Chrysil is now building this into the very core of their talent management strategy. And this wasn't some one-hit wonder. The beauty of this approach is just how flexible it is. For microfinance groups like PKSF and RDRS, it was all about finding high-potential borrowers to cut down on defaults. But then you've got a massive company like Diageo using the exact same principles to find the right fit people for their sales team, which slashed their attrition rates. It just goes to show how adaptable and effective the core tech is, no matter the industry. Stories are amazing, right? But they're also pointing to something much, much bigger. And that brings us to our final section: unlocking global potential. We're not just talking about helping a few businesses. We're talking about a tool that could unlock human and economic potential on a global scale. And it does it with some serious confidence. The predictive algorithm that powers all of this has been proven to have up to 90% accuracy. Think about that. When you're making decisions that affect people's lives and businesses, having that level of certainty is an absolute game changer. And just to be clear, this isn't some lab experiment or thing that's coming soon. As you can see on this map, mpower-u is already out there, on the ground across Africa and Asia. It's already making a real impact in over a dozen countries, changing how organizations find and invest in talent. So this all brings us to a final thought to leave you with. We started this journey looking for the invisible entrepreneur. But if we now have a technology that can decode the data of character to find them and predict success with this kind of accuracy, what's next? What other kinds of human potential are just sitting there, waiting to be seen if only we had the right lens to bring them into focus? Something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.